My name's Wendy, and this is Wonky and Crafts. This is a podcast where we talk about fiber-related fun. Knitting mostly is the primary craft that I do. There are occasionally other crafts and things that I may get up to, but that is the primary here. So with that being said, I live in Northeast Ohio. We are in full-on winter at this point, so all the cozy sweaters and all the things. It is December, and I am trying to finish up things before the end of the year so that I can start off fresh in 2026. So I have a lot of finished objects for you today. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, I hope you come along with us and hang out and we have a good time. Thanks. Let's get started with my first finished object, also what I'm wearing, and this is the Portobello sweater by Cheryl Mokhtari. This sweater is a Henley style sweater. It is, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you would have seen that I had a lot of trouble figuring out what buttons I wanted. As far as yarn and stuff, that was actually pretty quick and easy choice for me. I decided that I wanted to do this in a yarn that was a little bit of a cooler or a warmer weather transitional type yarn. So I did use Sandesgarn Duo, and I have some of it left. This yarn is, it's pretty much like a DK weight yarn, and it is a, let's see here. Hold on, probably try to find the English. Okay, 55% merino wool, 45% cotton blend. And I really like it. It's really nice. So I enjoy the weight of it and the, like I said, it not being 100% wool, it is nice. But it's still, because I think it has that wool, it is a little squishy. It's not as dry as your typical yarn or whatever, or your cotton. But I do like it. These are the colors that I used. And the colorways are this one is 4032, and this one is 4344. I got these from Nordlund Co, and I think they had them on there labeled as dark dusty rose and dusty rose. So, but that is the color. So I wanted this kind of I wanted my palette to have this kind of I don't know, pretty low contrast, pretty similar vibe. I thought that would be nice. And I did see in the projects on Ravelry that one other person had used the Sandesgarn Duo. The project itself, the recommended yarn is actually, I think it's Sandesgarn Double Sunday. So pretty similar, except for this has the cotton blend, which I thought, like I said, would make it a little bit more of a year-round knit for me to wear. With that being said, modification-wise, I didn't really make any modifications. What I sort of, and I say that because what I did do was I found very quickly, and I don't know why I never realized this before when I was knitting. I should have realized this before, because now that I think about it, it's so clear in other projects that I've made. But because you knit down to where this is, you are knitting flat for a very long time. And it has become extremely clear to me that my purl gauge, particularly the row gauge, is way off from my knit gauge. So although I followed the basic pattern, there was a point when I was doing the top where I was so far off. Like my knit was fine, or my rows were fine. It was my or my stitches were fine, my rows that were too long, that the length of these things was going to be so long that I had to start just adjusting and eliminating how many rows I was going to do in sections, or it would have been so far off. And other than frog back, because that's just not really my vibe, as you'll find throughout this whole episode. I just wanted to kind of go with it. So I really looked at the pictures in the sample, looked at kind of where the stripes started and so on, and just kind of followed that basic pattern. I had to, because my stitches were the right amount, but I was shortening the amount of rows I was doing. I did have to add a couple extra increases or extra stitches where it didn't say to, just so that I would get the width that I was looking for. But really, other than that, there really wasn't any modifications. You'll see this, and it isn't as bad when I'm standing up, but I have found that I have a running theme of making my sleeves too short. What I've also found though is it doesn't bother me at all. Like, I'm totally fine with this. Now, again, when I stand up, it's a little bit better. It's a little closer to my knuckle bones here, but I don't want them to drag in anything. So it kind of doesn't really bother me because they're not going to stay up if I pull them up anyway. So it doesn't really bother me at all, but that is a weird trend that you'll find. That is not the pattern, that is me, and you'll see that as we continue going, that I, for some reason, just tend to knit my sleeves too short, which is weird because I also block them before I finish them off, and they're still too short, so I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, let me give you a few little stats on this sweater. So again, this is the Portobello sweater by Cheryl and Mokhtari. It is a DK weight sweater, and let's see here. It comes in extra small through XXL is the sizes that she has listed, which is, let me just tell you real fast here, is a finished bust circumference of 96 to 130.5 centimeters. I really don't know what that is in inches. I still have to look it up every single time. For some reason, I can't just get that together. But when I look at patterns, there you go. That is the basics here for this sweater, and I did enjoy it. I did like the pattern. I knit in a size 3 for myself, and yeah, that's it. I do like it. So that is the Portobello sweater by Cheryl Mokhtari. Next up, we have the Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordlund. So this sweater is, this might be the sweater that I'm most proud of that I've ever made. I don't know if it's my favorite sweater, it might be, but this sweater, I love this sweater. The sleeves, this is the back, where you can see the pattern repeats from the front. It does have a nice little, the collar shaping is really nice. Yeah, I made a size 3 of this sweater. This sweater was definitely, if you watch Sibling Rivalry podcast, they did a bucket list make along this past year, and it started on January 1st with the idea that this was kind of a big deal project for you that maybe you would put off and you could take the whole year to finish it. So I had done a couple eyelets, but that was kind of the extent of my lace before I started this. Also, I had not done cables before I started this. So this was kind of a big project for me to do both of those things. That being said, I love it. Modification wise, only modifications I made was the pattern has a folded neckline. I did not do that, obviously, but I did do the Italian sewn bind off without doing the setup row one. I did that so that it does still have a nice kind of rolled edge here, since I wasn't doing the folded neckline. Other than that, I don't know, honestly, I can't remember if I followed the decreases for the sleeve or not as they were written. I think I did. I definitely did decreases. I just don't know if I did as many as was suggested. I also did, I don't know if you can tell here, but there's a little bit of a taper to the sides of the body. That I did just 3 rows of decreases just to taper this in a little bit. And the reason I did that was because I have lost weight since I started knitting, actually quite a few of these projects, so this is kind of a reoccurring thing. I've lost quite a bit of weight, and where I now I would probably cast on a size smaller in pretty much all of these projects than I did when I started them, would have fit me. So that being the case, I did do a little tapering so it wasn't too boxy. But otherwise, I didn't make any changes to it. I do want to show you this shoulder, the shoulder here. I think it turned out really nice. So you knit the back flat, and then you knit a little bit of like this shoulder, and then you do the other shoulder. Then once you get down so far, you join the two shoulders and knit the front flat for a little bit, and then you join in the round and you start knitting all the way around. If you are thinking about making this pattern, here's the one thing I will say. It does take a certain amount of concentration because it's such a big chart and so on that it does take a lot of concentration to keep track of when you're knitting the things, because you're not going to memorize it. The only kind of saving grace in terms of memorizing it and brain power is that pretty much every other row there you do just knits and purls. So your first row across, you may be doing like knit twos together, make ones, yarn overs, SSKs, all kinds of stuff. But then the next row is always going to be like knits and purls. So that is definitely helpful. Definitely helped me learn how to read my knitting a lot better. So that I could kind of go through those rows without following the charts as much. But I was very careful to count my little sections in this throughout the little pattern to make sure that I wasn't getting my stitch counts way off or something. And honestly, again, I did not frog, other than maybe like 4 or 5 stitches, I didn't frog a single bit of this because I wouldn't have even known where to begin if I had done that. So there's definitely tons of mistakes in this. But I think the way the pattern is it's not noticeable. And what I would do sometimes too is, like I said, when I go across, so with the pattern, you can see there's kind of these, even though it's like one long row, there's these sections where it's like you purl, then you knit a couple times, you kind of do the same main thing. Like there is a certain amount of like sections throughout a big row. So I would tend to go across from like this section, this purl to this purl. I knew that I should have like 7 stitches or whatever, so I could count those just to make sure that, okay, like when I go down to the next row, like, yes, I had 7. And if I found that like I missed a yarn over or something like that, or I knit 2 together or something, I would just kind of budget in that moment to get back to the right stitch count. And again, I don't think it was super noticeable. So that is what I did. But yeah, we do have a pretty long, once you get down to the body, it is a pretty long chart. And then you have to do that once on the front and once on the back. So it does take a lot of extra brain power. So I started this on January 1st and I finished this on about November 17th-ish. And there was a month or 2 in the summer where I didn't work on it much, and I did work on it a lot more around like October, because I wanted to get it done. My goal all along was to have this kind of be my holiday sweater. So very happy with it. It's the Champagne Pullover, and let me give you some stats on this. Oh, I will say too, I had plenty of yarn left over. Oh, I should also tell you what this yarn is. So this is, I dyed this yarn myself. This is Knomad Yarn is typically where I buy my undyed yarn from, and so that is what I did. This is some of their sock weight yarn. I don't remember exactly which one it is because I tend to buy them in packs of 10 and just use them. So I usually forget, unfortunately, which one it was. But it's kind of their standard, it was just their standard fingering weight. I think it's like an 80-20 or a 70-30 merino wool and nylon sock weight yarn. And then this is their mohair. And they do have a couple different mohairs now. At the time, I think this is the only one they had. And I want to say it's, I don't know, I think it's like an Nevo or something. Either way, they're very nice yarns, but that is what I did. I dyed these together in a pot to try to make them match. I think I made, I want to say I dyed 5 skeins of this, of each one. And I had these and almost, I think I had like half of each of, another skein of half of each of these that I had finished off, and then I have these ones that are untouched. So I think I might make a hat or some gloves or something like that out of this later, but for now, that is where we're at. So that is the yarn that I used. And the stats here we got, sorry, I got my phone to look at stats. Yeah, and this is the Champagne Pullover, and it is a sizes, it's a DK weight. She does suggest the fingering weight and the mohair together, but it's a DK weight yarn total. And the finished bust circumferences go from 37.5 inches to 69 inches. And recommended positive ease of 8 inches for this pattern. I made the size 3 in this. So yeah, that is the Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordlund, and honestly, I can't recommend it enough. If you are interested in making something a little challenging, a little bit more brain punchy, can't recommend it enough. Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordlund. Next finished object is the Soft Ruffle Socks by Allison Schmidt. Let me try to hold it so you can see the little ruffle here. Okay, so these socks, what I did, so I do have a sweater vest that is this color, although it was a DK weight yarn that I held with some mohair. So this pattern calls for mohair for the ruffle and then just your normal sock yarn. I was at Magpie Fibers, actual store over the summer, and they had this yarn that was, as you can see, this is, I dyed this mohair myself, and this is their yarn. So I couldn't resist getting the sock yarn to then make some socks with it that would go with my sweater vest. So that's what I did. This pattern, it's pretty simple, straightforward. I did make a few modifications to it. First off, it does, in the pattern, have a heel flap and gusset. I did the shadow wrap heel, which you can find the No Fear Sock Knitting Shadow Wrap heel video online. It's a great video. That's what I use pretty much for all of my heels. I will say that in the video, she recommends that you do 10 or whatever you need, that she tends to do 10 stitches here. So you do across here until you get to 10 left, and then you go back for your little whatever here. I do 12. I have a little bit of a wider foot, and I did 12, and I'm finding that works for me a lot better. The other thing that I did here, so I made some mistakes. Mistakes were made. So I cast on for the size medium. There's a small, medium, and large. I cast on for the size medium. I do have a tendency to have wider ankles, so I have, that is something I have not figured out yet in my sock knitting, is how to work with that. So anyway, I cast on for a size medium, and then you knit for a while. So you make the ruffle basically and leave it on the cable needles. Then you do the cuff just like a normal sock cuff, and then when you get to where you want to attach your ruffle, you at least, gives you two different options. I did the option where you just knit two together. So you basically take and knit these two together. You slip all your stitches, one in between, like one ruffle stitch, one cuff stitch, onto your needle, so they're all every other one, and then you just knit two together all the way around. There you go, ruffle attached, and then you keep knitting. What I did, even though the pattern very clearly tells you not to do this, I even read that it said not to do this, and I still did it. I attached my ruffle upside down. So, as I said, I'm not a big frogger, and I'm going to figure it out in the moment. So what I did was I decided to keep knitting, bind off, did an Italian bind off, and then I picked up stitches. So this was actually my cast on edge right here. And then I picked up stitches and then just kept knitting the sock afterwards. So you can see it kind of left this nice little edge here on the top of my sock. And then, but like I said, this right here is actually my cast on edge. And then I kept knitting. Yeah, but that, otherwise that is the sock. I did, here I did do some decreases here down to a size small from, like I said, where I was on the medium is what I started with. And then just knit the rest of the sock like normal. The yarn, this yarn, I've said this is how much I have left. I wear typically a size 6.5 shoe, so I can get easy to short socks, even like medium length socks out of one ball of yarn. But this is the yarn I got from Magpie Fibers. This is the mohair that I dyed. You can see how much they match. This is called Double Dutch, and this is their swanky sock yarn base, which has like cashmere in it. It's so squishy and soft. Probably not the best idea for socks to use something with cashmere, but like I said, I couldn't resist the color, so it was just gonna happen. These are my fancy socks now. So that is the Soft Ruffle Socks by Allison Schmidt. Two more to go. So next finished object. This is the Felix Pullover by Amy Christoffers. I don't believe I've shown this on the podcast before. This is something I started well over a year ago, definitely over a year ago. And like I said, as I'm trying to finish up whips for the new year and stuff, I'm just trying to get things off my needles. This was one of those projects that has been kind of lingering, and I really did want it to be finished, and I did want to wear it, so I didn't want to frog it or anything like that. But so I kind of been slowly working on it here and there, and finally finished it up. So that being said, this was a bit of a saga for me. So this sweater, first off, this is the size 3. The yarn I used, I did dye this yarn as well. This is I believe this is from Knit Picks. This is an alpaca tweed yarn. It is a pretty heavy yarn. I think it's medium worsted to Aran weight yarn. What I did was I had actually accidentally bought a pattern. I meant to buy one pattern from Andrea Mowry, and I accidentally bought the Weekender. So I decided, okay, it's a fun pattern. Let's get some yarn, and it'd be a nice kind of going for a walk, at the park and stuff like that on cooler days in the falls, tight sweater. I bought this yarn, decided I was going to dye it, and then I realized quickly that the gauge when I made the swatch was way off. I also decided that I didn't really like the color I dyed it. So this is my swatch that I had made, and the color I had originally dyed this yarn. The color itself is actually fine. I just don't think it's a good color for me necessarily. So I decided to over dye the yarn and also change this pattern I was going to make. So I did a search on Ravelry based on my gauge. So I searched I did a filter specifically by beige to find a sweater. And the Felix Pullover was a sweater that came up with the gauge that matched my swatch. Double fun, I already had the Felix Pullover pattern because in my next sweater, you will see I had originally dyed and planned the yarn for that project to make the Felix Pullover, and then decided that that yarn didn't really work for that sweater. So I decided to over dye this purple. So here I barely have any left of it, but this is what I have left, at least of what I dyed. I actually originally dyed in this color 6 skeins, and then I wound up dyeing only 4 purple, because I thought I only needed 4 for the Felix Pullover, which I did wind up only needing 4. So then I went ahead and dyed this, and pretty much, I don't even know what I dyed it with. I just dumped all my leftover purples into a pot and just used it. So this is what we got. But I really liked it. I will say, in terms of this pattern, so you can see you have this kind of lace bit here for the raglan, and my brain does not work well with how this pattern is written. I am very visual, and so the pattern, like the champagne pullover, is charts and stuff like that. I can work with that. This is very, like, each row is written in the paragraph form. So as I'm going around the rows, like, I would completely lose track of where I was at on which row. Like, I don't know why, I just couldn't track it very well at all. And so it was a really big struggle for me to get through these raglans. But it was one of those I knew too, that like once I got through the raglan, like it was just gonna be straight knitting, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I just had to get through it. But that was definitely a struggle for me, if that's something that you've seen before or know how you learn, how you absorb things. That may be something to keep in mind. It is, I said, it was definitely tricky for me to track that. But again, it doesn't last forever. I just did a normal, just your very standard bind off. And I think it's fine. I didn't know how to do another bind off when I originally started this way. So I wound up just doing that for the rest of it, and I think it turned out really nice. I like wearing this sweater actually under a white button-up shirt. It works really well just to have like a little bit of the cuff hang out, the little collar stick up, and then like just a little bit of the tail stick up about it. That is my preferred way to wear this right now, because it is a bit, a little big, but I do really like this. So let me give you some stats on this. So I made the size 3, and as I said, this is the Felix Pullover by Christoffers. Is an Aran weight sweater. It measures 30, finished measurements, bust measurements are 39 to 57 inches. So not the most inclusive sizing here. It is not that you should have to make any adjustments, but at the same time, if this is something you're interested in, I don't think it would be very hard to make some additional adjustments to make it larger or smaller if you wanted to, but that is something to consider with this particular sweater. And then the gauge for this was 14 stitches by 20 rows. I didn't say that on the other ones, but again, just because this is such a large gauge, I did mention that here. And yeah, I do really like it. So that is my Felix Pullover by Christoffers. Last finished object. This is I don't know what to call it. Well, I do. So I've been affectionately calling it my Lisa Frank sweater. It is kind of a mishmash of patterns, just some little things I wanted to do. So there is not necessarily a specific pattern for this sweater. This is, like I said, I've been calling it my Lisa Frank sweater. If you are a child of the 80s and 90s, as I am, you may recall Lisa Frank and the Trapper Keepers and all of that. And that was my inspiration when I dyed this yarn. and what I wanted, just some sort of magical unicorn kitten type sweater. Um, it was largely about also the yarn itself, um, that I wanted to make this. So let's talk about the yarn. The yarn itself is this. It is Knit Picks. They're 100% baby alpaca yarn. It was undyed. I dyed it this color. And then I had some Sari yarn that I dyed. I don't have a whole lot of the Sari left. Well, that's not true. I do have one, but it's much more pinky than this. This is more of the colors that I used throughout mine versus the pinky, but you can see it has some pink and lilac and teal in it. This is a Sari with silk, so there's a lot of alpaca going on. But I thought the silk might help stabilize the alpaca because I had heard about how alpaca tends to grow and doesn't have the bounce back that wool has. So that was part of my intention. Also, I just thought it'd be fun to see how that like kind of variegated Sari worked on the solid background, which I actually have a few projects like that because I do kind of like the staticky like look of it. Staticky like again, we're probably the 80s and 90s when your TV does like the static screen. That's what this reminds me of when you use a variegated yarn like this. So that is what I did here. So I had made the Monday sweater by Petit not long before I made this, and I was working on the Felix Pullover. So I kind of used a little bit of the starting and points of those two sweaters and like the gauges and stuff to kind of get my counts to make this sweater. I very much just wanted a large, oversized, squishy sweater. Originally, I had wanted it cropped. We'll come back to that in a minute. So that is what this is. I did do a folded collar. I did do some short rows. Although it's not super noticeable, I did do some short rows. And you can see the collar is a little bit dropped. And then I wanted kind of wider sleeves. I also obviously did not do helical knitting for the Sari because I just wanted, if it wanted to pool, the colors pooled, then the colors pooled. I felt like that was just part of the vibe I was going for, is just let it do what it wants to do. This is about it being squishy and wonderful. And there's definitely, like you can see on the sleeve, quite a bit of pooling off in the back there. Some down here at the bottom. So the other thing I wanted to do was a split hem, which I did do. And it's a little bit longer in the back versus in the front. So here's the thing. I finished this I finished this about a year ago. And at that time, I realized that it was way too short. There was not enough short rows to lengthen the back, and it was more cropped than anything that I had wanted. So what I did was I put it aside for a long time. Then at some point, I got brave enough to cut the hem off. So I cut it right above the ribbing and stuff here. Cut that. Then I got it all set up and started doing a little bit of knitting. And I'm trying to set it down again for a while. So this is when in my strive to finish the things, I picked it back up. All I had to do was add the rows and then stitch the hem back on. So I did it. I've never done anything like this before as far as cutting the yarn and doing all that, but I was just like, whatever. I'm not gonna wear it as it is right now, so let's just give it a shot. So I added quite a bit of length. I don't think you can tell too much, but I think about, let's see if I can, about here is where I added all of this. I also, on the back, added short rows to make that even longer than it already was, to fix that length problem in the back as well. Then I Once I did that, I then used Kitchener stitch to stitch my hem back on. What you may notice is that there's a bit of a ridge. That is because when I was stitching it back on, I realized when I was completely done with the front half that it was inside out. So that is actually a garter line of stitches or purl bumps from the inside of the sweater, where I had cut it and flipped it and put it on the wrong way. Even though there's a split hem, I did cut this off in like one big circle. So now I couldn't just do the back. Part of the problem is because the back, the way I had cut it, I had actually cut the back down a few more, or up a few more rows than in the front. So there was like 3 rows of like purl bumps on the back part of the hem. So it would have been like, this kind of looks, I feel like a little bit more like a choice, where it would have looked really weird on the other side. So what I wound up doing then, is again, I'm not redoing it. That's just how I roll. We're just gonna figure it out. So I cut I cut the front off up from the back. So I said I already had that stitched on. It was a little tricky because there wasn't a lot to like weave in and get it tied off to make sure everything was secure, but I did my best with that. Then I flipped the back around to facing the correct way, and Kitchener stitched that on. So you will also see that I do not have that bump in the back. And honestly, I don't think it's noticeable. Not really. I mean, you can see a little bit of a ridge there from the ribbing up to the stockinette. That is where the Kitchener stitch is, but I think because it goes from the ribbing to the stockinette, it's really not too terribly noticeable. Also, it's a pretty busy sweater with the variegated Sari, so I don't think that's too bad. But anyway, that is my way suffering sweater. Yeah, so hopefully, if nothing else, like I said, I don't really have a lot of stats or anything like that because I did kind of just make this up. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of encouragement, maybe if you want to branch out and try something, or like I said, maybe sometimes there's a solution that isn't just fogging something. Maybe there's a way to fix it. Sometimes there's not, and if you want to fix it and fog it, like, I think that's great, and by all means do that. But also if you worry that something might be messed up or something that is holding you back, maybe this will be a little encouragement to not let those kinds of things hold you back. You can still, get a lot out of it. And obviously I learned a lot. This is a pretty warm sweater. I think I've only worn it once so far, but I am looking forward to wearing this quite a bit. It is seriously the squishiest thing ever on the planet. So, but I am looking forward to wearing this quite a bit, particularly, I think I'll get a lot more use out of this once it gets to that kind of like still chilly spring weather, but maybe you don't always want to wear a coat kind of a thing outside. And I think this will be really good as like almost a coat layer, and super squishy and comfy, casual thing to throw on. Random thing on the side is, one thing I don't get a lot of wear out of is my sweaters, my knits, when I'm at home. And I do work from home part of the time. Or when I'm not traveling for work, I am working from home. And I don't get a lot of wear out of things at home because my cat is incapable of using his claws very well, and he snags all things knit. So I do not wear knit things in my house. In case I have to, and I always pick him up at some point during the day. Whenever I pick him up, I'm afraid he'll snag something. So I just do not wear my knit things at home. So they don't get very much wear, unless I'm kind of traveling for work or in a situation where I'm not going to be at my house. And honestly, like I said, working from home most of the time, that is not going to happen on time. But outside of that, I pretty much just go to the house and go hiking. So that is, so that's just a line up side note about my life and my decisions to wear knits. So I haven't got to wear this much, but I am very excited and hopeful to wear this more soon. But yeah, that is my Lisa Frank sweater. All right, in an effort to make this video not too long, I am not going to show any of the whips that I am working on right now. Again, it's mostly things that I started a long time ago and I've never shown on the show, so there's quite a bit to go over with them, but I am near to finishing them also, so I feel like I'll just talk about them when I do finish them. Hopefully that is before the new year. So that is kind of where I'm at with my whips. I am working on kind of, it's really trying to think through what I want to do and what kind of my goals and ideas are for 2026 knitting and, you know, my projects and things. I am big on, I don't mean to do these things because I'm going to stick to them and be very rigid about them. I do it because it's fun to think about my knits in that way and think about I just enjoy thinking about what I could possibly do and so on. They can obviously definitely deviate and become something else. That's just what I enjoy. That being said, on my last podcast and on my social medias, I discussed potentially doing a little bit of, for some of my upcoming projects, doing either a full cable sweater or doing a colorwork sweater and going from start to finish 100%, like picking out undyed yarn, dyeing the yarn, you know, picking out the colors, knitting up the pattern, all the things. So I had that finished up. It's just kind of like a long go of how I do that, because I do dye quite a bit of my own yarn. Obviously it's a little bit of a mix. I do both, but I do dye quite a bit of my own yarn for projects because I just like that. It's just a fun thing for me to do and see what I can make with the colors and stuff, so on. So I had such an I love the interaction I got, but also there's across the board quite varying. I think there was every single pattern got like a vote at least. So I didn't really come down hard on one thing or the other. That being the case, what I have decided 100% that I do want to do is I am going to do definitely dye and go through that process for a cable sweater and for a colorwork sweater. Which ones that will be, I'm not 100% set on. I did, if you follow me on social media, I did recently post that I got somebody gifted me a gift card to Woo & Co for the holidays, and very lovely person did that for me, knowing that I like to go there and that I get to travel to where the actual brick and mortar store is, and gifted it to me early so that I could go while I was in town. And I was completely obsessed with two colors of yarn and that I saw, and it just became a matter of like, I have to find projects for these. So I am gonna make the Forget Me Not sweater, but not with dyed yarn. I bought Danish yarn double Sunday to make that project with this yarn, the colors that I fell in love with, which was the blackberry juice and the pineapple, Petit pineapple something. So it's gonna be like main color yellow with some dark purple, light purple flowers and green leaves. I'm very excited about that project. I'm very excited about that project. It has been tricky for me not to do the swatch or cast everything, but again, I want to finish some of my other projects. So that I'm definitely going to do, but not as the dye project. So that is what I'm figuring out now. And some of that depends on, again, maybe some other things that I might put for the holidays and so on, which exactly what I'm going to do with what. But that'll be upcoming and something I want to do in 2026. One last thing. So two things maybe. So, one last thing. I decided that I personally love the videos where people do everything I made in the previous year, 2025 or whatever. They're starting to come out now. I also love the videos where people kind of put together what they're kind of planning, thinking, so on, projects they want to make or whatever, make 9, whatever it is, that however they put that out there for the coming year. I know that those things for some people can get a bit repetitive, but personally, I love them. I love the quick snapshot inspiration of how somebody put something together, what they actually thought of, the patterns and so on, if it's one that they've made, or it's the previous year video, like seeing how they fit, and like I said, their interpretations of those patterns. And I also like to see, I just get so much inspiration from seeing these upcoming patterns and projects and things that people are thinking about. It gets my mind working. So I don't know if I'll be able to provide that for anybody if I make these videos, but that is what I do want to make those videos. And I do, for me personally, I tend to prefer them to be not too long in terms of each project, because I just want like that quick inspo snapshot. But that being said, I do want to make it so it's something that hopefully you'll enjoy. So please comment below if you have any particular preferences for those types of videos. Do you like the stats on the screen? Do you like them read out loud? Do you prefer, if it's the previous year stuff, do you want me to have on the garments, maybe stand up so you can see me in them? Or do you learn how they fit? Or is that not as interesting to you? Let me know what you're thinking. And then same for 2020, the future plans, is there a particular order or way, again, like the amount of information you want about these projects and so on, is there anything like that is helpful or makes it more enjoyable for you? Because I would like to try to, like, obviously put it together in a way that hopefully you're going to get the most out of it, to hopefully, maybe inspire. I feel a little bit, I feel a little eager to say, like, hopefully I'll inspire you, because it's that about me, about these patterns and so on. But hopefully you'll find something in them, but I want to make sure that I get it to you in a way that will hopefully be able to provide as much of that as possible. So if you have any comments or suggestions on what that could be, I would definitely love to hear that, so that I can make the best video content for you to go along with your projects. And outside of that, I'd love to hear from you where you're knitting, where you're crocheting, embroidering, whatever project it is that you're working on. I'd love to hear about that, where you're watching from. And yeah, I think that's all I have for today. I hope you had fun hanging out with me. This is my second time making this entire video. I had some issues with my microphone, and I did not realize it until I posted it. I immediately took it down after somebody graciously commented to me that there was a problem. And I took it down. I have, as you may notice, I got a microphone. So I am testing that out. I think this will, in the long run, be better for me, because I have a very soft voice. So that's always something I've been struggling with in my videos, sitting far away from a mic. So hopefully this will be better, and something I was wanting to go with long term anyway. So so if you saw this kind of title and so on pop up before and then disappear, and this is popping up again, it is a different version if you haven't caught on to that. But hopefully it's a little bit better. Well, hopefully it's 100% better with at least the sound quality. And but also I tried to be a little more concise and quick, so it wasn't as long as my original rambling version. But I don't think many people saw that, other than you might have seen it pop up and started it. If you did do that, hopefully you gave it a second chance, and if you did, I really, really appreciate you giving me another shot. I'm still learning a lot of how to do a lot of this stuff, and I've been slowly upgrading my equipment. I got new lights also, if you've noticed. So now I can finally start recording any time of day, which is going to be really, really big for me. Again, I'm in Northern Ohio. It is dark at 4 o'clock. So there is absolutely no filming after work or anything like that. And then even on the weekends, right now it is so overcast, I could not rely on natural light to record on many days either. So this hopefully will make things a little more consistent, a little easier, and hopefully that you enjoy it. But again, I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate every one of you who's watched this. And I just hope you have the best day. If you celebrate the holidays, have the best holidays. And just fill your heart with something that you love and enjoy yourself. And that is all from me here at Wonky Crafts. And I hope you have the best day. Thanks. Bye.